Welcome back to Color Class. I'm Sarah.
I'm Lucinda.
And today we are discussing a hot topic because we're going to be looking at why we put so much emphasis in decorating a room like our living room versus our style or our overall appearance.
Now, we may be talking to the wrong group of people here because we know that of thousands of subscribers that we have, they love color analysis. They believe in color analysis. So this is directed to your friends, neighbors, maybe family members, people you know, who may not be as sold as you are on the benefits of knowing your colors and dressing in those colors.
Right.
So what we're talking about here is why folks, and this started with a conversation that Sarah and I had about a couple people that we know that have their homes perfectly decorated. I mean, exquisite. And when you say to them, have you thought about getting your colors done? Or, is that, no, I don't believe in that. But you just did your colors in your room. Yeah. And that's something that we had to talk about. We didn't really understand why people are so ready to believe that color in a home is absolutely critical. And having harmony in a home is absolutely critical, while at the same time, they don't feel that they deserve to have that same harmony and that same care that they've given to their home.
Now, one of the kind of things we were thinking about as why this could be the case is, self-serving bias, I guess, was kind of one of the talking points that we were trying to discuss.
It's a psychological term.
Right.
So I hate to get into psychological speak.
We talk psychology here all the time about color.
We do. So maybe that's a bias that I have. But basically, sometimes people, whereas the home represents their families and, creating a perfect environment for the people they love, maybe they feel that that's appropriate, but the energy required to create a perfect environment for you and your own personal colorscape, maybe they feel that they don't deserve it.
Right. And I also think another talking point that we wanted to bring up is being overwhelmed with how much decision there is, because I still get overwhelmed with the decisions that I need to make.
You are so correct. You are absolutely correct. However, I will say that if you follow us, if you've learned about color with us, by the time that you've spent by the time you've gotten through a little bit of this, you know that it's not that complicated. It's not. So whereas it might and you know what? I'm going to say something here. I believe that decades of color analysis have been overcomplicating a very simple system. If you talk to somebody who does a color analysis service, or if you read a book, it seems complicated. But if you watch any video we've done on the 4 seasons, it's really very simple. So whereas they may have a little bit of choice paralysis going on, where it just seems too overwhelming, they don't want to fool with it. It's really simple. Once you get a couple principles down, you're done.
I think that's why we love the 6 palette system so much, because it really boils down to one thing that's left out of the 4 seasons is the soft to clear, which does make a big impact on your colors. But when you see the scale laid out for you, where you fall from light to deep, where you fall from warm to cool, and where you fall from soft to clear, you can go into a store and say, does this meet my medium depth? Does this shirt meet my slightly warmer hair color? Right. And is this color soft enough for me? Because those 3 things, instantly I can look at something and say, you know what? Great. Perfect. That would be my right color. And on the other hand, I can say on all those other ones do not work for me.
Well, true confession here. This morning, I popped in and did one of my favorite things to do ever, my hobby.
Thrift store shopping?
Yes. She didn't know. She guessed. And I thought about this. I thought about this video, and I was looking at rows and rows and rows and rows of color. This was a huge thrift store, roughly the size of a big grocery store. I mean, this is not a little thrift store, huge. And the racks of women's clothing go on and on and on and on. So as I shop, I'm able to walk down at full speed down a rack of women's clothing and know that I don't stop until I see something that is appropriate for my palette.
Right.
And so I can do an entire store in just looking at women's tops, for example,
Right.
in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
So it really, instead of being overwhelming and making it complicated and taking too much time, it really simplifies your life.
Exactly.
Once, as Sarah said, you know this sort of cheat sheet to go through in your head as you're looking at things, it will save you so much time and it will save you so much money because you're no longer, I saw some things today, cutest style in the world. Great, designer brand. It was actually a designer top. And I was like, oh, man. Oh, really, oh, wow. I can't because it was kind of in an orange family. And I mean, there was no way I could adjust for that top. I wasn't going to buy it because if I did buy it, just because it was a designer top, it was beautifully put together, it would have sat in the closet. And it would have been a waste of money.
Yeah. So we've talked about 2 different talking points already, but one more that I want to actually bring up is cultural conditioning, because we as a society have different ideas about, certain colors, what it means, what it represents. Also trends, in the early 2000s, like the baby pink. In the 2010s, you got the neutrals. In the 80s, you got neon. 90s, you got like what, brown and black?
Yeah. And black, mostly black.
Right.
It was the whole Madonna thing, the material girl, and you were wearing black all the time. But also your age. Let me give you an example of something that was pounded. I'm 68 years old. So when I was young, and I'm talking about in my early teens, the women who influenced me would say, never wear purple. It will make you look cheap. Purple looks cheap.
Interesting.
And so I was never allowed to buy purple clothes because purple makes you look cheap. Now, neutrals, classy. Black, white, classy. That was sort of the epitome of elegance. But back when I was young, purple made you look cheap.
So I think we're at kind of number 4 of everything we want to talk about, which is fashion as self-expression. Now, we as color analysts, we always believe wear the colors that you love. And sometimes I feel like the fashion industry can really push some disconnecting colors that don't harmonize.
Yeah, they will.
If you know what I'm talking about.
And there's a reason for that, by the way. And sometimes if you see things that are happening on the runway, you will go, what?
Well, it's jarring. It makes you look.
That's and you never see it on the street. And what I see happening is this weird, jarring, kind of wacky thing on the runway. That dress or that outfit ends up being on a human being and looking completely different because what they offer the public is not what they put on the runway. They pulled it back a little bit and made it a lot less, as Sarah used a brilliant term, jarring. And I have this story I love to tell. I'm a big fan of Malcolm Gladwell. I don't know if you've read any of his books, but the most famous one was The Tipping Point. And he talks about a certain product and how it tipped. And that was Hush Puppy shoes. And again, I can go back a lot further than you guys because I'm older and can remember things. But I remember Hush Puppies being the most ugly, hideous things. They were it was dad wear, and they wore them because they were comfortable and they were ugly. And so in Soho, a trend got started where these hipsters were wearing Hush Puppies because they were ugly. And it was something that gave them kind of some self-expression and, this kind of interesting vibe. And they wore them because they were hideous. What happened with Hush Puppies back, in the 90s? They became hot. They tipped. And they tipped because these cool fashionistas started wearing Hush Puppies to be noticed because they were ugly. And they became a fashion statement. So,
now, my generation out there, millennials, Gen Z, this is the same for Crocs.
Exactly. A lot of people wore them and they were pretty hideous. And then people said, wow, I'm going to make a fashion statement.
I mean, that's what happens. We create jarring looks as self-expression, but bringing it back to the whole living room concept or decorating a space. Imagine if you had all these jarring things in your house, or you had all of clutter I mean, it's the same kind of
who
thing.
would have clutter in their house?
But it's the same kind of thing. Like you walk in and it becomes overwhelming, or you don't feel as harmonious in that space, as calm. That's just what it is. I mean, it's the same exact thing, just moving. Instead of decorating a space, you're decorating you.
The difference, however, is that when you're doing it for yourself, the fashion is self-expression, that bullet point, it means you're trying to get attention.
Right. Your fashion.
When those people in Soho were wearing hush puppies, they were saying, hey, look at me. Look at this ugly shoe I've got on. Or when the first person who started wearing Crocs was wearing Crocs. Look at me. Look at this ugly shoe I've got on. Or walking down the runway with these wacky, with giant shoulder pads that are out to here and that just can't work as something you'd wear on the street. The designer is saying, hey, look at this. And so fashion is self-expression. That's great. You can do that and have harmony at the same time. You can say, look at me.
Right.
I'm harmoniously put together, and I happen to look beautiful.
Because it blends with my hair, my skin, my eyes. It's bringing attention not only to me, but also my clothing at the same time.
Yes.
And then when we were kind of having this chat, there was one more thing that we wanted to discuss, and that was I fall victim to sometimes is celebrity influence, or just influencers online buying something because it looks amazing on them, and then you get it and you're kind of like, why did I do that? Because not only completely different seasons, different coloring, different body shapes, we kind of see something and we think it looks good, so it's going to look good on us, but we also have to take our coloring into consideration
as marketers, and we have a long history of being in that business. They call that aspirational marketing.
Yep.
And so the people who are trying to sell you something will say, we'll do it this way, we'll put this together because we want our target audience to see this, and we want them all to say, I'm going to buy that because I want to look that way. And for the longest time, that's why plus size catalogs, I mean, for years, don't do it so much anymore, but for years, they used skinny models. For plus size clothes. They would tell you because it's aspirational. We want this customer who buys a 1X or 2X or 3X and think, wow, I'll look like that. I mean, it's really kind of dirty.
Right.
I mean, it's not the best
marketing overall.
Strategy.
Marketing in general. I mean, I think we can talk all day about problems in marketing, but when it comes back to us talking about living rooms and how we focus on living rooms and we focus on, decorating a certain space, but not ourselves, I also feel like home decor is decorated a little bit differently. Like it is marketed as more harmonious. You want your living room to be of harmony. So they bring out collections that all blend together. And I don't feel the same for the fashion industry.
Yeah, it's all over the place.
Right.
And whereas you are so right about this, and I was getting pictures popping into my head as you said this, I'm thinking about Magnolia, the whole Chip and Joanna Gaines thing.
Right.
That's a very harmonious look, certain colors, everything works together. Pottery Barn, same thing. Harmonious, everything works together. It's kind of like a vibe. Even
you're like marketed an entire thing that's very calm and put together in a harmonious way. The colors all look beautiful when it's on display, but with the fashion industry, we don't get that as much.
Yeah, things are thrown at you in every color, in every intensity, and it's like when you're at a football game. And I'm not going off topic here, but let's say you're at a football game, and the people in the front row, they stand up, because they want to see a little bit better. Well, then the people behind them, they have to stand up because they can't see because the people in front of them stood up. And that goes on. It's a ripple effect. It goes on and on and on and on. And the fashion industry is a lot like this because, everybody is saying, look at me, look at me, look at me.
Right.
And then the next people come along and they have to say, well, look at me, look at me, look at me. Whether it's, the Sundance catalog or whether you're looking at any other upscale collection that you might get a catalog for or you might see in a store, there's a lot of that competing, to just grab your attention.
Right.
And which means that in order to combat that, you have to have an eagle eye and some knowledge about what you're going to buy into and what you're not, the influences you're not going to let happen to you rather than you kind of happening to your world.
It's like Anthropology. I feel like,
Yeah.
I mean,
that's a great example.
I'm sorry. I'm like, ooh, Anthropology.
Well, I love Anthropology. I
Right.
love that store. I love going into the store. I love buying things in that store, mostly on sale because they're a little pricey. But I love their stuff. But oftentimes, the thing I've noticed about Anthropology is that they have a lower cut neckline, and it keeps getting lower and lower and lower. So if you buy the scoop neckline, you have to try on that outfit, or you're going to be showing something you don't want to be showing down here because the cut, it has become so low. And I'm telling you, go into an Anthropology, try on, something with a square cut neckline, and just see how low that thing goes now. Again, another way to grab attention.
Well, we don't want it to go that low, so.
Well, it can go as low as you're not showing anything. I mean, I think.
Who are we to say?
You're right. If you want to show half of your please go ahead.
We're going to get demonetized.
She got
all
cut
right.
out.
So, on that note, thank you for joining us today.
It's been fun.
What else do I need to talk about other than that?
Subscriptions.
Yes, we do have our color analysis available. You can find it on the website.
It's waitlisted.
We are on a wait list. You can join us on Patreon if you want to get those first open slots. You can also find us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. If you want more of us in your life, we are there. What else liking the video, commenting, sharing, subscribing. If you do any of those things, it helps us out. It helps us be able to create more content for you. Just keep that in mind, whenever you see one of our videos. But lastly, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm Sarah.
I'm Lucinda.
This has been another color class, and we'll see you in our next video.